person that certainly is passionate about finding ways to encourage wealthy Australians to give more to those in need is Sarah Davies, the CEO of Melbourne Community Foundation. Sarah actually joins us now in the studio. Sarah, great to have you on board. And tell us a little bit about what the Melbourne Community Foundation is, what it's all about.
Look, we have a very simple job. Our job is to encourage people to be philanthropic, to make it easy for them to be philanthropic, and basically then to help them understand, develop and implement their giving. But it's not just about wealthy Australians, it's actually about all Australians. Philanthropy is not just for the wealthy, and actually it's not just about money. So I think there are certain myths about philanthropy and who gives and who doesn't, and a community foundation's role is actually to encourage everybody to think about how they give and to increase the impact of that giving. So our job is to help people think about it and then to implement their giving in the areas where they've got their passions and their interests and to make sure it's effective.
So if I'm living in Melbourne and I want to give, why would I come to the Melbourne Community Foundation?
The people who like a community foundation structure tend to be people who have got some kind of interest in the community. They've got, whether it's in arts or whether it's in disability or environment or welfare, they're passionate about something, they're interested in something, and they actually want to be able to change the kind of world they live in, or they want to engage their children and their families in thinking about it, or their businesses that want to develop a sustainable and effective social investment program. And so they need help. How do you actually make a good investment in the community?
So I could come to you and say, look, I want to give, I want it in the area of education, but I don't know really what's best to do. You would give me advice and options?
Yes, what we offer is individuals or families or businesses can set up a branded or a named charitable fund under our structure. We look after then all of the appropriate due diligence, compliance, reporting, the investment of the money, and the tax deductibility, because tax effectiveness is an important part of thinking about philanthropy. And then we work individually with each donor or business to say, well, what is it you want to try and achieve through your giving? And we then help implement that. So we'll do the research into the programs, we'll look at the evidence, we'll organise site visits, we have donor forums where we bring people together with like-minded individuals where they might co-invest in activities. It's really about connecting people with each other, with the community, to better make the investment of the grants.
How many community foundations exist in Australia? Are they common? Have they been around forever?
Look, there are about 28 or 29 community foundations in Australia. Melbourne Community Foundation was the first one. We've been around 13 years, so we're the oldest. We're all a bit different in how we work. Melbourne Community Foundation is really the only one that has what we call a donor-advised model. So we are exclusively comprised of donor charitable funds. So we work only with our donors and helping them implement their giving. Most of the other community foundations are place-based and are regional pooled funds to build the capacity of that community. So, for example, Northern Rivers Community Foundation in New South Wales looks after that geographic region. Basque Coast Community Foundation in South Victoria, again, looks after that region.
But you're easily the biggest, I think, in Australia.
We are the largest.
But there are community foundations, obviously, in Europe and in the United States.
All over the world, not just Europe and the US. There are something like 700 community foundations in the US. The first one, I think, was established in 1914. They've been around a long time. They're throughout the UK, they're throughout Eastern Europe, and increasingly now throughout the Africas and throughout Asia, in that they are used really as a vehicle to connect people with community.
Okay, now look, Brooke and I have been looking at your publication, MacroMelbourne,
That's wonderful.
A livable city for all its people.
Yes.
I think this was an initiative from the end of 2009.
That's right, yes.
So what is it? What is MacroMelbourne?
Okay, look, one of the ways that we help people with their giving is to provide researched, evidence-based projects that what's the best way to describe it? That basically look at the future and say, look, if we don't do anything about these community issues, this is the kind of world we're going to create. And so how can we design projects and activities and events now that we can invest in now to prevent something happening? And when we updated MacroMelbourne a couple of years ago, the research came back, particularly around Melbourne, about the major issues in the growth corridor. So rapid population growth, without the kind of social and physical infrastructure that makes a healthy community, the evidence was that the rate of disadvantage and inequality in those urban growth areas was far greater than in the rest of the community. And that's pretty scary. So we are actively building communities without the kind of social infrastructure to make them healthy and safe places to live. So what MacroMelbourne did is said, well, look, let's go out to those physical geographies and find projects now that we can invest in now that will prevent disadvantage occurring, or that will create community cohesion and equality from the ground up.
I understand this is about increasing giving across the board, as you said, but given we mentioned the high net worth individuals, what do you really think is key to trying to target them and getting them much more on board?
I actually think there are a couple of things. I agree with Peter, and I agree with the research that Philanthropy Australia has done that, you know, we've actually got the vehicles. We've got the right kind of vehicles, we've got the right kind of tax incentives. The two things I think that we're really missing, one is awareness. I don't think it is something that we talk about publicly in Australia. I think there is still an element of tall poppy syndrome. I mean, I know, for example, within our donor community, and we have, 200 funds under our structure, the donors are very happy when they get together to talk to each other, but they are very reticent and humble about talking about their philanthropy outside that, even with immediate family and friends. So I think we have a culture of being very private about it. So I think if we can provide leadership and examples and case studies of people doing this, it will encourage other people.
So we need those people who do give to be open and say this, because then it helps others to do the same.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing then is examples of how incredibly exciting and rewarding this can be, and what an amazing tool it is to build families, to build community, to do with friends, to do in an organisation. It is the most incredibly fulfilling activity.
Sarah Davies, sounds like Peter and I need a weekly show at the very least then, not a monthly show.
At least daily.
And good luck with the foundation. It sounds great.
Thank you very much.
Sarah Davies.
Bye-bye.